Welcome to Evilive. That was a weird cutoff. Live media commentary show that answers the question: why don't twins who are on opposite sides of the war look different? Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we're reviewing HBO's Game of Thrones House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel. The cruelest. Oh man, this show is so good. This series is so damn good. I just can't, I have to just get it out. I love it. Okay, now that it's out. This was directed by Claire Kilner, written by Sarah Hess, and originally aired yesterday, June 23rd. All right, so we start with the sort of fallout of what happens with Prince Jaehaerys' death. Very brutal at the very end of last episode. And naturally, everyone is insane with rage, particularly King Aegon. I mean, he is just beside himself. He saw his son, Jaehaerys, as a promise to be a better version of himself. I think arguably all men see their sons like that, even though they're really just their own individual human beings, and we need to not put undue pressure on them to be us rather than just who they actually are. But it is that sort of promise, like, oh, my son's going to be better than me. He's going to be smarter than me. He's going to be stronger than me. And, you know, he's a better ruler than me. Like, you always want the best for your kids. It's a natural thing. And King Aegon, who is not necessarily a known good human, it's nice to see that he does have a side of him that's not, you know, abjectly evil. He's not a King Joffrey. And I really, really appreciate that about his character. There's depth to him that is, well, it's nice. I guess is the word I was looking for. Anyway, he assembles his small council and he's plotting revenge on Rhaenyra. And ultimately, Lord Jasper makes the slightest suggestion that perhaps, maybe, Rhaenyra didn't have anything to do with it, which is quickly shot down. And immediately, Ser Otto comes in and says, look, we need to capitalize on this. Now, I understand you're all hurting. I get it. But I'm the hand, and I'm telling you, we can leverage political favor from the people through this act. And all we have to do is parade your dead child. We're going to have to sew the head back on. Okay? But we have people that can do that. So we just need to parade the dead child with Alicent, the grandmother, and Helena, the mother. And they just have to go through Old Town with the dead baby's corpse in front of them. How could anyone see this as a bad option? It's the worst option you could ever possibly give, but it does what was intended. And so they reluctantly agree. Helena especially did not want anything to do with it, but she's here for the family. She's here for the throne. And so she does what she's told to do. I think there's a missed opportunity in her character. I have not read Fire and Ice, so I don't know where she ends up. But she has the potential to be a genuinely interesting and powerful character if she just learned how to own herself and her thoughts and stuff. And it's something that she hasn't ever been able to do. And intentionally, probably, because she's a woman and this is Game of Thrones and there's expectations. But I feel like she has the potential to be an incredibly strong ruler. And I kind of wish she would get that opportunity. And at least I like seeing women empowered. And so I like it when women sort of come out of their shell and they tell the world what they actually think and not just cower. I hate that more than anything else. Like, there's no reason for it, especially not in our real world. But arguably in the Game of Thrones world, we have enough examples of women stepping up throughout the course of all these different shows that I kind of want Helena to do it. Anyway, maybe it's just because she's a witch and I love witches. That's probably what it is. So Blood gets caught. He's this gold cloak guard that actually did the removal of the head. So I didn't know the details of the death of Prince Jaehaerys. I just thought they killed him. I didn't realize he was like those sounds we were hearing at the very end of the last episode when the camera cut away. It was him sawing the kid's head off. How dark, how crazy is that? And then he's like, just gives everyone up immediately when he's in jail. Don't hurt me. It was Damon, and I didn't do it. It was the rat catcher. And he was like doing everything he can just to like drop dimes on everyone else and take no accountability for his own actions. But then he's like, hey, you're not going to hurt me, are you? And Larry's is like, no, I'm not going to, but I can't say anything about Aegon. He's pretty pissed. And King Aegon just walks in with this mace and just kablow! Smacks him and just beats the shit out of him. And look, it's justified. I don't feel bad for that dude, and like for a half a second at all. He cut a child's head off. And I don't give a fuck what the misconceptions were. I don't care what the situational buildup was. I don't care if that kid, King Jaehaerys, was going to grow up to be a Hitler. It's a child. You don't do that to kids. Like, it's the worst. I mean, you don't do that to anyone, but you don't do that to kids. Fuck. Oh, just brutal. So then we cut to Dragonstone. Rhaenyra's having her council, and everyone's just like, I can't believe this happened. You didn't have anything to do with it. And she's like, are you out of your mind? Of course I didn't. I would never do that. And she like looks over at Daemon, and he's like, doing everything he can not to look guilty. Meanwhile, looking as guilty as anyone has ever looked in their entire lives, period. Like his hand was literally in the cookie jar when she looked at him. He was just like, oh, it was brilliant. And then she like gives him a look like, how fucking dare you do this to me? And then they go and have a conversation about it. And she's like, what? How does this even happen? He's like, I did it for you. And he's like, I didn't mean for it to be like that. I told them to get Aemond. I didn't think they were actually like going to kill the kid. And she's like, well, what were your exact words? I need to know exactly what you said to them. And Daemon's just like, bitch, this is supposed to be my crown. Like he immediately does a 180. He's like, the only reason why you are queen asking me to swear my fealty is because my brother wanted to put me in my place. And he didn't want me to be a ruler because he knew I'd be better at it. And she's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I am the queen. My father, your king and brother, chose me to be the queen ruler. He groomed me the entire youth of my life to be a ruler. And you're going to pretend and stand here and say that he just made that to diss you? Really? That's your statement, husband? Oh, it was a beautiful scene. I loved it so much because it did such a great job of highlighting the disconnect in Rhaenyra and Daemon. Like they are on the same team, right? Like they're definitely on the same team. We're just not sure because Daemon is a wild card. And that's what I love so much about this show, more than anything else. It's the characters. No one, there's not a King Joffrey in this. No one out of any of these people vying for the throne in this series are trying to actively destroy the kingdom. They're not trying to eliminate everyone on the other side just so they can step in and rule. They're doing what they genuinely believe is right. Daemon really feels wounded by his brother, and he really actually thinks that he deserves the throne. Rhaenyra definitely believes that she was groomed to be the queen because she literally was. Alicent, she doesn't want to burn the kingdom down. She thought on his deathbed, her husband, the king, said to put their son. She didn't know about the fire and ice legend or prophecy or whatever it was. So she had no basis of understanding. So everyone in this, Otto Hightower, he's leveraging it for political gain and stuff, but he also believes his daughter, Alicent. So everyone in this is doing it for the best of intentions and the best of reasons. They're just going about it really horribly. Like really badly. And then you have things like the dragons and the kids that are just compounding the problems. It's just the most brilliant way to showcase it because I genuinely think in a lot of cases, that's how our own government representatives are. They don't want to burn the world down. They're just trying to do what they believe is the right thing. We just happen to see things completely differently. And so that's where you get that massive disconnect in our political system. And then, of course, in House of the Dragon and theirs. It's so brilliant. I love it so much. So Daemon ends up going to Harrenhal. He's like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to go try to get another kingdom on your side. And so he pops smoke on his dragon out to Harrenhal. And to be honest, I'm not sure what happens. I know there is going to be a point when Harrenhal is melted, but I don't think that's going to be in this show. I think that's going to be later on, closer to the beginning of Game of Thrones, where the Mad king is involved. So that's in the future, not yet. I'm looking at my notes here. Aemond. Aemond is an interesting character because we are shown his vulnerability. So he's the one that killed Rhaenyra's son at the very end of last season. And he just has presented himself as being a pure douchebag, asshole McDoucherton the whole show. And so you just assume, oh, well, that's who he is. But we get to see in a moment, he is in a brothel with a whore who is just a matronly, loving, motherly person that he's paying, not for sex, I'm sure they do that too, but in the moment, is just to be held, just to show that he needs to feel loved, and she is giving that to him. You can't, like, for Aemond to get love from Alicent, she's going to have to kick Sir Criston Cole out of bed for, him to get any sort of affection or attention. Because let's be honest, Alicent is not a very good mother at all. She's arguably the worst. And so she's not going to show anything for him. And he clearly is in need of love. And this really moment of incredible vulnerability where he is like, look, I feel bad for what happened. I didn't want that to be the end result. And this is what I'm getting at when I say everyone in this thing is just doing their best, just doing it poorly. Because he didn't want to burn the world down. He didn't want to kill that kid. He was bullied by that kid, and so he was just sort of stepping up to showcase his power, and it was Vhagar who did it. And that bell cannot be unrung at this point. You just got to suffer through it. And I loved seeing his weakness and vulnerability. It just showcased humanity in characters where you're afraid it's going to just be this vapid vacuum rather than an actual, you're expecting everyone to be sociopaths rather than actual caring human beings. And I much prefer the human beings doing their best than the sociopath route of character design. And then, of course, Daemon had kept Mysaria around because she gave him information with blood and cheese in order to try to kill Aemond. And now Rhaenyra is forced to either honor Daemon's wishes of freeing her or killing the bitch because she's powerful. And Mysaria gives this really great speech about how, she had to fight for everything she ever got, and she realizes she doesn't want to be a part of the political machine anymore. And whether that's true or not, I liked the speech. I thought it was great. You have to, at some point, come to terms with, they burned my whole business down. They tried to have me murdered. And even the people that I'm with right now want me dead. I need to change my life. I need to make some real changes and avoid all of this nonsense. And that's where she is as a character. And I love that about her. Simultaneously, however, we get the worst character in all of Game of Thrones history. I would argue even worse than Joffrey, in Sir Criston Cole. This asshat is just fucking Alicent for power. And then when they realized what Sir Criston did by sending Sir Eric over to Dragonstone to try to kill Rhaenyra as a sort of tit-for-tat maneuver, and Otto Hightower found out about it, he lost his goddamn mind. He's like, are you a fucking idiot? If it was Joffrey, he would have been killed right then and there. But it's not Joffrey. So he was like, look, give me your badge. You're no longer in my hand. And he's like, this is a huge mistake you're making. He's like, I don't care. Give it to Criston Cole. Criston Cole is doing what I want him to do. You are not. I'm going to listen to him, not you. Fuck you. And let me tell you something. You could not give the Hand of the King badge to a worse character than Cole. It's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be the worst decision that this king, who is not going to be on the throne for very long, has ever made. But he deserves it because he's the one that made it. Sweet hell. So there's this really great back and forth between Sir Eric and Sir Criston, where Sir Criston's doing his best not to say, hey, look, I was busy fucking Alicent. So clearly the onus is on you to have protected the prince, and you failed to do that. So what the fuck, yo? And it's just like the stupidest, worst argument you could ever make when you are so clearly guilty. Everyone knows it. Oh, it drives me nuts. But Sir Eric is a fucking idiot, and he just serves the King Guard loyally, even though they are the worst people in a position of power. So he's like, you want me to go kill Rhaenyra? How am I ever going to get there? You're sending me to my death. He's like, not death, glory. Which, no, it's just death. I'm not going to make it out of there alive. There's no universe where I get out of this alive. If I even make it to her room, I will not make it out alive. So you're asking me to just die for you. And like, you? Cole? Fuck you. Like, that's what I would have said. I resign my fucking role here. But he does it. And this is what drives me crazy. Every time you get twins together in any type of show, they always have to make them exactly identical. And so there's always going to be a kerfuffle moment, the Parent Trap moment, where they're like, wait, who's who? I can't tell who's the one fighting and winning. Who's the one slashing whose leg? And so the choreographers in that fight scene between Sir Eric and Eric literally intentionally had each of them wound each other in the exact same way so that you couldn't figure out who was on top and who was on bottom in the very end of it, which is just Scooby-Doo-ish. I think it's so dumb. It doesn't matter. It's over now. So, whatever. But it's a trope that pisses me off because it's lazy ultimately. But anyway, Sir Eric is passing by Mysaria as she is being escorted off the island. And she's like, she doesn't have to say or do anything. She could just let it unfold. But there was this moment between her and Rhaenyra where I believe they had a tiny bit of a connection. And so she's like, all right, I gotta tell someone. We don't see the scene, and that's okay. We just see Sir Eric walk into Rhaenyra's room, take his sword out, and move to kill her. And then all of a sudden, Eric comes busting in the door, and they have a great duel. Now, again, I was complaining about it because, two identical twins, you don't know who's on top, whatever. The outcome of this battle was brilliant because ultimately, how could you as Rhaenyra ever trust that the correct twin was killed? The one that wants you dead is in fact dead. It would be so easy for him to pretend that he's the other one and then wait till your defenses are down and then fucking kill you. So he knows in that moment, not only is Rhaenyra never going to be able to trust him again, because there's always going to be that suspicion that he's his brother, but he also killed his fucking brother. The one person that they shared their entire lives with, their whole lives. They came into the world together, and he just can't cope with the fact that he killed him. And so he just falls on his own sword. And it was like General Kale and Mad Mardigan sort of like melon sounding like sword going in his stomach. You just like that horrible like crackling sort of scraping sound and stuff. It was dope. I loved it. I thought it was great. Great moment. He knew what he had to do. And Rhaenyra, of course, was shocked. She didn't want that outcome, but it was the only possible outcome that could have happened. And I loved seeing it. So last episode was ending on the death of a fucking child, a little baby. So terrible. This one ends with the dual death of twins. And it showcases the realities of this Dance of the Dragons war. There's no winners in this. Everyone's a loser. Everyone's doing their best badly. And it's everyone else that suffers. I mean, ultimately, we're going to see some real people topple here. But right now, we're watching the powers that be vying for the throne, and everyone around them is just getting hurt and dead. And that sucks. I can't wait till we start to see some real people dying. Some characters that we've known and grown to love for a season and a half, and then all of a sudden, fuck. I can't wait for that to happen, because it's coming. It's coming. All right, so as soon as they do that funeral procession, all of King's Landing is on King Aegon's side. Like, no one wants Rhaenyra to come in. She's a baby murderer, like the most monstrous kind of a murderer. So everyone's on her side until Aegon hangs every single one of the rat catchers because he didn't know which one was the one who helped Blood kill his son. And that single act is the one that causes Otto to lose his mind and then, of course, lose his seat as his hand. But like now he's lost everyone's, like the small common folks' support, because those are the people he murdered. And yes, he got the right one. He got cheese, but what about all of the other common folk who had nothing to do with it, who are now dead? Prince Aegon is caught between this idea of wanting to be loved and feared, and that just doesn't work. You have to choose one or the other. Joffrey, I mean, he sucked, but he knew fear was his motivation for worship and adoration, and he fucking leveraged the shit out of it. King Jaehaerys did it through love, and he did it beautifully and brilliantly, and there was peace because of it for a very long time. So, you just can't have it both ways. You have to make a choice as a leader how you're going to lead, and then you have to just embrace it and stick with it. Otto and Alicent, they start their little plans of having to get Aegon back under control as he's sort of spiraling out, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Like, he is bereft, he's hurt, and he's going to hurt others until he feels better. That's just sort of the simplicity of lizard brain mind that this guy is drawing from. And ultimately, we end with this really weird moment of Alicent like slapping Kristen Cole and then them fucking. And the whole time I'm screaming at her, don't have sex with him. Stop having sex with him. Stop. And she can't help herself. She has nothing else. There's no control in her life. She has no influence except for in this one act. And so she's going to exhibit that power when she has it. And Kristen Cole's just like, give it to me, baby. Like, he don't give a fuck. And he's just a piece of shit because he thinks he's going to leverage Alicent, especially now that he's Hand of the King. Oh, it's going to get bad. It's going to get really bad. This was a brilliant episode, and I cannot wait. Every single week, and this is only the second one, but even with the first season, every single week you watch these episodes, and they get better and better every single time. And now I am salivating about what's going to come next. And yes, I could go read the book, or I could go look at my illustrated guides that I've done reviews on that tell the whole story. But I kind of like not knowing where the storytellers are going to go specifically, and then being surprised when you find out. And you realize that it's not, they may have had the text say this and this happens, but to add dialogue and character motivations and actually seeing it unfold is completely different. And this showrunner, I got to call his name out really quick, Ryan Condal, is just killing it. He is doing a great job. He is murdering this show. And I'm loving every second of it. So let's keep this up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have you guys watched this? What do you think of this? Is this like a kick-ass fantasy series, or do you just not like political shows? Either view is valid, and I'm curious because this is like my bread and butter. I can't help but love this shit. All right, so that's it for this review of House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, remember that evil spelled backwards is live, so get out there and be evil.